Hello, hello! Welcome back to Brenda's Books. This season I will be narrating for you the future war love story, Sara's War, which you can also buy a printed copy and a digital copy at Barnes & Noble and on Amazon. Today we are on Chapter 56. Here we go. Chapter 56. Taking Care of Your Own. Loud buzzing startles me awake. I rub my eyes and squint at the heart monitor. Jack's heart rate just spiked a bit, then went back to normal. But he's still unconscious. He has been for days. I lean forward in my wicker chair, rest my elbows on my legs, and put my head in my hands. Why won't he wake up? "How's he doing, doctor?" says a sweet voice from the clinic room doorway. I look up to see Nurse Peggy Giles, holding a tray of cafeteria food. I lean back in my chair and rub my palms down my thighs. He's improved, I just can't figure out why he's not awake. "What would you as a doctor say if you weren't in love with the man?" Peggy asks. I attempt to scowl at her for that comment, but I'm too exhausted. "Well, ma'am," Peggy says, "you haven't left his side even to eat. Even the best doctors don't do that. I just put two and two together. It's a good thing you have a fabulous nurse who brings you food, isn't it?" She puts the tray of food on my lap. I stare at the lump of mashed potatoes with absent-mindedness. "Yes, it is. Thank you so much, Peggy. And I must say, you haven't called me sweetie yet this morning. I'm impressed," I say with a tired smile. Peggy grins. "I've been making a conscious effort. You have enough on your plate. I don't need to add to your aggravation." I stab some wilted broccoli with my fork. I appreciate that. But I do have a favor to ask. I glance up at her with a little skepticism. "I'm not leaving the Colonel until he wakes up, Peggy." "And I admire your loyalty, ma'am. I really do." She pulls over another wicker chair across from me and plops into it. "But the Sergeant Major needs you." "What happened?" I ask, my mouth full of broccoli. "He needs eye surgery. You know that. A replacement cornea just arrived. And you know how time-sensitive organs are." "I cannot go to Bridgetown right now," I say, shaking my head. "Oh no, he's here at the army base," Peggy cries. "He is?" "Yes. General Granger knew you were the best doctor for the job. This is your specialty, right?" I sigh and glance over at Jack's long figure, lying on the hospital bed, with tubes and catheters stuck in all sorts of places. His breathing is deep and heavy. "I was just about to give the Colonel some more blood," I say softly. Peggy shakes her head with a concerned expression. "You donated a pint just 3 days ago, Doctor. You know you shouldn't give more right now." I place my elbow on the chair's armrest and cover my eyes with my hand to hide my burning tears. "But he needs more blood," I whisper. "I know that," Peggy says as she leans forward. "But you can't kill yourself in order to save him." I lift a sharp head to look at her directly. "He would do it for me." Peggy points one long arm in Jack's direction and says, "He's twice your size." At the same time I say, "He did do it for me. He knew the turncoats were on to me, so he convinced them to take him out of the submarine a different way so Nate and I could escape." I slap a hand over my mouth as a sob bursts through. Peggy bites her lip and takes a deep breath. "I'm so sorry about your friend, ma'am." I put my face in both my hands and weep. Peggy stands and walks over to my side and puts an arm around my shoulders in an awkward side hug. "Maybe you're not in the best shape to do this surgery anyway," she whispers. "But Jack would want you to do it," says a familiar voice from the doorway. Startled, I glance up through blurry tears to see a handsome redhead standing over the threshold. "Randy?" Randy opens his arms. "In the flesh." I jump from my seat, almost forgetting a food tray is on my lap. By the time I set it on the small round table next to me, Randy is at my side and embracing me in a tight hug. I squeeze him back and look up at his face. "Are you all right?" "Of course I am," he says, letting go of me. "You, however, have had it pretty rough from what I hear." I shrug and wipe the tears off my cheeks. No more than a soldier? Maybe. But you're a doctor. You're meant to fix people. How are you going to do that if you keep almost getting killed? Even if it's by donating too much blood, Peggy cuts in. Randy points his head in Peggy's direction. She's right, you know. There's no way you would let anyone else donate again this soon. So I'm not going to let you do it. You're too valuable, and I care about you too much. My, oh my, look at this, says Peggy. He's starting to talk like you, Dr. Andrews. Well, you know, she sticks a hand out, under normal circumstances. I did learn from the best, he says, giving me a huge grin. But I definitely can't perform an eye transplant, and you can. So here's what we're going to do. You are going to eat every last bite of that food, and how much sleep did you get last night? I sleep all the time while I'm in here, day and night. Perfect! So you can give the sergeant major a new eye, am I right? It would make it a lot easier for him to run the battalion while the colonel is sleeping. I cock my head. It's a coma, Randy. He's in a coma. Randy lifts his open palms. Fine, we'll call it what it is. But you know Jack would want you to help the sergeant major, and you definitely know he wouldn't want you to give more blood. But he will die without more blood, I exclaim. And you will die with less, he shoots back. I promise I will go blood donor hunting today, Peggy offers. I'm sure we can find more people with A-negative blood. A-negative? Randy says, bouncing his gaze back and forth between us. That's my blood type. I'll donate blood while you give the sergeant major a new eye. This is perfect. Randy grabs my shoulders and stares at me with a bright smile. A willing blood donor is a huge relief. But I want to help the sergeant major. I really do, I tell him. But I have to be here when Jack wakes up. Randy puts one arm around me and shifts us so that we're facing Jack's unconscious self. Okay, look at the patient. Now think rationally about all the information you know about his medical condition. Do you really think he's going to wake up in a couple of hours? I glance at Jack for a long minute. Finally, I blow out a gush of air. No. Okay then. Now do you think the fresh cornea is going to last very long? I sigh again. No. Do you think I can perform the surgery? I turn a sharp head to look at him. No. Randy grins. There's the doctor I know and love. But do you really think she can, Randy, considering how upset she is? Randy drops his arm and we both turn around to face Peggy. Well, I would hate for her to repeat the same Bridgetown incident. Peggy raises a palm to me. So sorry, sweet ma'am. Nah, she'll be fine, Randy says. You've never seen her perform surgery before. Once she gets in the groove, there's nothing that can pull her out of it. He shifts to make a show of scrutinizing me. Besides, she's sad, not insane. Peggy slaps a hand over her mouth, as if Randy's words were appalling. I rub the back of my neck. It's okay, Peggy. He's right. I'm obviously worried about Jack, and Lexi and Chris, since I don't know where they are. But once I see the sergeant major's eye, I won't be able to think about anything else until the transplant is complete. Peggy grabs my arm and leads me back to the wicker chair and sets the tray of food on my lap again. Then start eating so you have energy. Who's going to be my assistant if you two are busy? I ask, before stuffing my mouth with mashed potatoes. Molly will do it, Randy says. I swallow. Molly's here too? When did you guys get here, by the way? And why? Randy puts his hands on his hips. Haven't you heard? The war's over. I laugh out loud. Right. Randy grins. Okay, so it isn't. But the enemy in Bridgetown did surrender. No kidding! Randy's smile brightens. Yeah, Molly and I arrived here at the base last night. And, Peggy interjects, raising a finger and bouncing on her toes. Ah, Randy lifts a hand to stop her. My news, my turn. Peggy purses her lips and blushes. What? I ask, shooting them each confused glances. Randy inhales deeply, blushing himself. I took your advice and told Molly everything. My eyes widen. And? Randy shrugs. She believed me. A broad smile spreads across my face. That's amazing, Randy. I'm so happy for you. Randy grins and blushes some more as he stuffs his hands in his pockets. Yeah, I can't believe it. I'm so lucky. She is lucky, I declare. Randy smiles. Thanks for always being there for me. You've been a good friend too, Randy. And thanks for what you're doing for me now. I gesture with my head in Jack's direction. Of course, Randy exclaims. I can't wait for the Colonel to tower over me again. There's nothing like having my insides turned to outsides. I laugh and Randy joins in. I'm so glad we're working together again, Sara. I beam at that. Me too. That was fascinating, I exclaim to Molly, as we both wheel a cart away from the sergeant major. Isn't the eye amazing? So many different facets to it. I agree, says Molly. That surgery seemed to go pretty smoothly for you. I park my cart next to Molly's. Yes, it did. And he did great. I'm so glad he'll be able to see again. Molly glances over at me and smiles. I'm sure he will be too. She begins sterilizing our tools without being asked. I slide to her side to join her. Thank you for assisting, I tell her. You were a lot of help. Oh, you're welcome. She pauses. I'm glad you're doing better, Doctor. I sigh heavily as I remember what an awful state she last saw me in. What's the sigh for? She asks. I'm sorry about having a breakdown, she finishes for me. I groan internally. Yes. That's never happened to you before? Because it's happened to everybody else. Although she sounds empathetic, I can't help but recall seeing a circle of nurses laughing at me when I was stuck to a chair at the back wall of the bomb shelter. But there's no sense in bringing that up. You said something in your sleep, Molly blurts out. No way. She's going to bring it up? Which is why I like you now, she says, looking up at me. I raise one eyebrow. Because I talk in my sleep? Molly laughs once. No, because now I know you don't have any interest in Randy. And he doesn't have, she trails off, interest in me, I finish for her. Molly smiles shyly. Well, yeah. He told me about your talk and how you told him to tell me he loved me. I grin. I'm so glad he finally did. Molly beams and blushes deeply. Well, at least I'm good for something, right? I meant it as a joke, but Molly answers me seriously. You're good for a lot of things. You have no idea what chaos Bridgetown was without you, she admits. I'm sorry I've always been so sour. I hated you so much because I liked you. I put my hands on my hips. Oh, right, that makes perfect sense. Molly laughs again. I'm just a really jealous person. There's no reason to be jealous of me, I point out. Randy loves you. Molly smiles so wide her nose crinkles and her eyes squint. He's pretty cute, isn't he? I smile back. He is. Then Kate pokes her head in the doorway. Are you two finished? Oh, hi, Kate, I exclaim. Kate grins. Hi, Dr. Andrews. Randy is ready to take you to your surprise. My surprise? Wait, is Jack awake? I peel off my gloves and move to bolt for the door. No, it's not that. I stop in place, my heart plummeting. Kate frowns. Sorry. Randy wants to take you somewhere, I think. Molly puts a hand on my arm. You're going to love it. And I'd like to come too if you don't mind. Of course, I stutter. But I have no idea what this is even about. Where are we going? You'll see, Molly says with a grin. We both throw our gloves in the trash, and I follow Molly out of the surgical room. Wait, Molly, I can't go. Molly turns around. Why not? You know why. I need to get back to Jack. Molly steps toward me. It still feels strange to have her look kindly at me. I know you're worried about him, but he's not going to wake up today, and this will really help you. I promise. I open my mouth to ask more questions, but Randy suddenly appears by our sides. Ready to go? He asks. I am, says Molly. I need to get back to Jack, I remind him. What you need is a break, Randy says. Come on. He links his arm through mine, and Molly links hers through my other arm, as they both start dragging me down the hallway. If I didn't know any better, I would think you two had planned this. They both grin at that, as they lead me outside into the brisk autumn air. We weave around several unfamiliar buildings, until we stop at the very first place Lexi brought me to, when I first arrived at Big Rock. The thought of her makes my stomach lurch with twisted worry. What are we doing at the helicopters? I ask. We're going to fly this beautiful Black Hawk right here, Randy declares, patting its bright red side with firm affection. And just who is going to fly this beautiful Black Hawk? I question. You're looking at him, Randy cries. He opens the door to the cockpit and motions for us to climb in. My jaw drops. Randy just grins. Randy served in aviation for a while, Molly says with a smile, as she takes Randy's offered hand and hops up and into the aircraft. Okay, I guess I'll trust you, I say slowly, as I climb in beside Molly. The engine roars and the propellers spin as we ascend rapidly into the sky. I gaze over the swiftly moving trees and walking paths below us. This flight is making me super nostalgic, I say out loud. For what? Asks Molly. For Lexi. The first thing we did together was fly over the base. Well, actually, Randy says, speaking loudly over the thrum of the aircraft. That's who we're headed to see. What? I exclaim, turning sideways in my seat to face him. And Captain Barnett, says Molly. What? How do you know where they are? Lexi told me, Randy nearly shouts. Despite her previous dismissive behavior toward me, it turns out that Chief Warrant Officer Oxford actually likes me, especially now that she knows Molly and I are together, and she doesn't have to worry about me getting in the way of you and the Colonel. I see, I mutter. At the same time, Molly cries, All hail to that! With one big pump of her arm. Randy flashes her a grin. But when did you talk to her? I shout to Randy. While you were in surgery, he replies. She said the three of us should come since they might need all of our help. My stomach churns. I definitely don't want another bloody scene among friends. But I'm glad I came now. I want to help. Molly pats my leg as if she knows what I'm thinking. I glance over at her and we exchange shy smiles. Here we are, Randy calls. We hover over an aircraft carrier in the ocean, and with expert skill, Randy descends the Black Hawk, and we land on the flight deck with perfect ease. Wow. Molly and I both murmur. Impressed, huh? Randy cries. I grin at that. It's so nice to see Randy's shell peeling off. What now? Molly asks. We wait until they come, Randy answers, flipping off the engine. After the loud thrum of the Black Hawk, the silence feels stifling. The three of us climb out and sit on the solid steel carrier, with Molly curling up into Randy's arms. The ocean waves softly roll in toward us. The image of Chris falling overboard shudders my frame. Is Captain Barnett all right? I ask. The sound of my voice sounds strange in the silence. Randy leans forward to look at me. I think so. Lexi said he was with her. Isn't Lexi the one who got you off the island? Molly asks me. Yes, but then she ran away to find Chris. Do you know where he went? I ask Randy. Randy rests an elbow on a lifted knee. I think he went to find the Rear Admiral and some others. I glance between the two of them. I told him not to move, but he didn't listen. I throw up an arm in frustration, as if they know what I'm talking about. The Army takes care of their own, Randy says in Chris's defense. You would have done the same thing. I grimace, knowing he's absolutely right. I thought a Rear Admiral was part of the Navy, Molly chimes in. Randy opens one arm as he starts talking with his hands. Yes, okay, so the military takes care of their own. Minus the obvious turncoats, of course. My vision blurs as I remember Bryce's oily grin as he pointed a gun at my face. But it's not nearly as horrible as Nate's face. I clench my teeth as I fight to swallow the stinging sobs crawling up my throat. I raise my knees so my elbows can rest on them. I ball my hands together in one big fist and lean in with my forehead. Hey, says Randy. When I lift my head, Both Randy and Molly are crouched in front of me. What is it? Nate, I choke. Randy and Molly both take a place on either side of me. Molly scratches my back in slow circles. Randy sits like me with his elbows on his knees. It's not your fault if that's what you're thinking, he says. But I was right there, Randy. I didn't even see Bryce swim to the shore. You were busy reviving the Colonel, he consoles. You saved his life. I squeeze my eyebrows together with my fingers and attempt to keep the tears in, but they spill anyway. Blast, I hate crying. It's okay to be sad, Sara, Randy says. I should have insisted Nate hide to keep himself safe, I rasp, still looking at my lap. But he is the one who took down Brontes. So he was meant to be there, Randy affirms. My head jolts up to look right at him. But he deserves to be alive! I know, he says softly. I cover my hand with my mouth and sob some more. Randy and Molly both scoot closer and wrap their arms around me. They don't move as I cry hard for several long minutes. Finally, Randy speaks again in a low voice. You did everything right, Sara. You gave it your all. Without you, those terrorists would still be running around trying to kill Jack and destroying the Navy. We have hope now because of you. And because of you, Jack is still alive, Molly offers. Randy squeezes me tighter. I know it doesn't make up for Nate's loss, he whispers. But you're still a hero, Sara. And Nate would agree. I let out a soft, shaky sob. His words are like a warmth of healing balm to my soul. Even when my sobs quiet down, my friends don't let go. You're a hero, Sara, Randy says again. Molly nods and leans her head on my shoulder. You're a hero. And that concludes Chapter 56. If you want to find out more about Brenda's books, you can visit brendasbooks.net. Until next time, take care.